On July 27, 2026, on a parade ground in Burkina Faso, 218 young officers graduated from the Georges Namaano Military Academy. But it wasn't their diplomas that made headlines. It was what they were wearing. The uniforms were made from locally woven fabric, handcrafted by Burkinabe weavers. Inspired by the Sensengu, a traditional textile from the Gulmo region in the country's east, for the first time, the nation's future military leadership marched not in imported fabric, but in the cloth spun, dyed, and woven by their own people. Captain Ibrahim Traoré was there to see it. The message was deliberate and it was unmistakable. If Burkina Faso can weave its own military uniforms, what else can it make? The answer, it turns out, is almost everything. This is a story about a nation that stopped waiting, a nation that decided its cotton should become its own clothes, its tomatoes should become its own paste, and its gold should be refined on its own soil, and its grain should feed its own people. This is a story of what Burkina Faso is building right now. Let's start with that uniform, because it is not just a uniform, it is a manifesto. The Sensengu is more than fabric. It's a centuries-old weaving tradition from eastern Burkina Faso, passed down through generations of artisans. By choosing it for the nation's military academy graduates, Traore's government didn't just honor culture, it placed an order, a massive one. And in doing so, it created a market for hundreds of weavers who had spent their lives watching their craft fade against cheap imports. This is the philosophy that drives everything happening in Burkina Faso right now. Don't import what we can make. Don't outsource what your own hands can build. And don't treat tradition as a museum piece. Treat it as an industrial asset. Before this, Burkina Faso's military uniforms were largely imported, polyester cotton blends shipped in from foreign manufacturers. The Sensengu initiative flips that. It says our soldiers will wear our cloth, our weavers will supply our army, our culture will be our industry. That same philosophy is now running through the country's factories, including one that had been dead for nearly 2 decades. In November 2024, Traore's government poured nearly 18 billion CS francs into rehabilitating a SN Brafaso brewery, a state-owned facility that had been dormant for 17 years. The Comsilga plant now produces 600,000 hectoliters of beer annually under the Brafo and Brafaso brands, but Traore wasn't satisfied with one. This month, in July 2026, the government allocated an additional $52.3 million from its own patriotic loan diaspora bond to build a second brewery in Bobo Dioulasso. That's over 30 billion CS francs. The goal is direct: challenge the foreign-dominated beer market, keep profits inside Burkina Faso, and create hundreds of jobs in the country's economic capital. This isn't nostalgia for state-owned enterprises. It's industrial strategy. When a Burkinabe buys a Brafo, the profit doesn't fly to Paris or London. It stays in Ouagadougou. It pays Burkinabe workers. It funds the next factory. The brewery is one of dozens. In March 2025, Traore inaugurated the Fassi Detergent Industrial Complex, the first detergent manufacturing plant in Burkina Faso's history, built on 1 hectare at a cost of 4.5 billion CFA francs. It produces 300 tons of detergent powder, liquid soap, and solid soap every single day. Before Fassi, Burkina Faso imported nearly all its cleaning products. Now Fassi products sit on shelves nationwide, packaged in recyclable materials, priced for local consumers, and branded in More. Fassi means clean and spotless. The complex created 122 permanent jobs, over 300 direct jobs, and nearly 1,600 seasonal positions. Then there is the tomato revolution. Burkina Faso is one of the West Africa's largest tomato producers, over 360,000 tons harvested in 2024. Yet for years, the country imported 23,600 tons of tomato puree annually, while 30% of the domestic harvest rotted in the fields for lack of processing. That ended in late 2024. 2 processing plants opened: Sofato in Pognongo, processing 5 tons per hour, and a second facility in Bobo Dioulasso with 6 tons per hour capacity. Together, they aim to eliminate tomato paste imports entirely and eventually position Burkina Faso as a regional exporter of processed tomato products. Cotton, the country's white gold, is also moving up the value chain. A new cotton processing center in Sia is part of a broader push to stop exporting raw fiber and start exporting finished textiles. And an $11.5 million cashew processing factory is under construction, targeting one of the country's most valuable agricultural exports. Perhaps no project better captures the philosophy than the Faso Kosam, Burkina milk. For years, only 2% of the country's milk production was collected and processed, while Burkina Faso spent roughly $15 million annually on dairy imports. Faso Kosam was created to reverse that. What began as a single processing unit in Ouagadougou has expanded to multiple facilities across the country. With Faso Kosam, we can sell our milk without losing it, and that means more money for us. End of quote. A dairy factory doesn't make headlines, but it changes what a rural families eat for breakfast. It changes whether a farmer's daughter can afford school fees. It changes whether a nation of 23 million people drinks its own milk or import someone else. None of these factories work without power, and Burkina Faso had a power problem. National electricity access stood at roughly 21%, less than 1% in rural areas where 70% of the population lives. The answer was written in the sky. The Yelin program, Light in Bambara, is one of the most ambitious solar electrification initiatives in West Africa, backed by the African Development Bank, the Green Climate Fund, and the European Union. It aims to connect 50,000 households to solar mini-grids and provide 100,000 more with standalone solar kits, bringing electricity to nearly 1 million rural Burkinabe for the first time. A 42 megawatt solar plant northwest of Ouagadougou, featuring West Africa's first grid-scale battery storage system, 8 megawatts of storage capacity. This isn't just about lights in rural homes. It's about powering the factories, running the processing plant, keeping the dairy chillers cold, running the looms that wove today's military uniforms. Today, 218 young officers wore a uniform that told a story about a small landlocked Sahelian nation that decided it would no longer be defined by what it lacked, but by what it could build, brick by brick, turn by turn, job by job, thread by thread. The question isn't whether Burkina Faso will become an industrial powerhouse overnight. It won't. The question is whether a country can demonstrate that industrialization is still possible without colonial extraction, without endless debt, and without waiting for someone else's permission. Thank you for watching this far. Tell us, what do you think about Burkina Faso's strategy to industrialize their nation in the comment section below. Also remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.